Hey everyone, this is Jeremy the East with another late night rambles, and it's been a while since I've done one of these because there really hasn't been much I wanted to talk about. But there was one thing that did catch my interest that I wanted to get my thoughts on since I have a good history with this game. The recently, about like a couple weeks ago, Capcom put out trademarks, renewing their trademarks for several of their older IPs, including Power Stone, Darkstalkers, and the topic of this video, Dino Crisis. Dino Crisis has been a big interest of mine for a long time, mostly because I've been wanting to see a remake or a remaster of sorts for this game for as long as I can remember. So, just a bit of history with Dino Crisis. This was a game I got introduced to back in the PlayStation demo discs way back in 2000, 2001. I can't remember which one of the demo discs I had or which specific one it was, but I still have the disc. I recently bought it again through eBay so I can relive it. And I played it several times. I have the PSP, no, not the PSP, I have the PlayStation Store digital copy, so I played it on the PS3, on the PSP, played the original, even did played it on an emulator for several times, and I've completed it so many times all the way over. I've got all the unlockables and even did the speed run unlockables. So it's a game I know mostly back and forth from memory, save for certain sections in the game that require puzzles or some forward thinking. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because when I went to play through the original Resident Evil games, mostly 2 and 3, it made me wonder, you know what? I've had a lot more fun playing Dino Crisis than I did Resident Evil. And I tried thinking to myself, why exactly? Well, I think the main thing came from the fact that I was mostly terrified of the dinosaur aspect. I mean, zombies, yeah, they could be scary in some sorts, but they were mostly slow moving. Dino Crisis had, when their dinosaurs, most of the raptors, are fast. They are fast and they will hunt you down. And even more terrifying in the games, they could they can go through doors, much like how Nemesis could in Resident Evil 3. But these were just the common enemies that will just follow you for rooms until you like get to a certain like room that they couldn't follow you in, or a save room. But the topic is about a potential remake. I've been wanting to see a remake of this game for years, and even up to the point when Capcom announced that they were doing the Resident Evil 2 remake many years ago. And since Capcom has been now getting back on their feet, especially with reviving some of their old franchises, especially like what they did with Mega Man, and they rebooted Resident Evil with 7. Well, soft reboot, but they also remaking their older games. And with their push to try and re-release these games, that makes me wonder if a potential Dino Crisis remake could be in effect. This all could be just nothing and just Capcom renewing their IPs to hold on to the franchises for all we know. I mean, with game companies nowadays, you don't know what they plan to do with their IPs. They could just be holding it so they could just they'll keep the royalties, or they might do something with it later on down the road. This is all speculation on this video. I want to talk about a potential remake of what I want to see. So first of all, with the remake, it would have to be pretty well, other than the obvious high definition. With the newer game consoles coming out technically now this year, around the holidays, that's gonna make me wonder how these games will look on the PS5 or the Xbox Series X. Basically, the newer generation consoles that'll come out. It makes me think how the graphics look. And then again, Capcom's been pushing out their new graphics engine, the RE engine, for their horror games. And when it comes to Dino Crisis, it puts more emphasis on survival in survival horror. It could be still a scary game, but more than ever, it's a survival game. And you have to play a little more strategically. So, with the RE engine, not only will the game look incredible, but it'll feel and sound incredible. What I mean is that the lighting, when it came to the remakes, was top notch. Like the whole areas that you come across dark enough, but it gave you just enough light to see what was coming up ahead of you. They could do the same thing with Dino Crisis, because throughout the first half of the game, at least whenever you do a playthrough, depending on where you're at, the area is dimly lit. Even on the PS1, it was a dimly lit area before you go down like to the lower levels. So just imagine doing that when you try to come across all the raptors that are roaming around the facility. And with the sounds, Resident Evil 2's remake sound design was top notch. Like you could almost hear every nook and cranny. I was playing with headphones, and I swear I was tense just trying to figure out, okay, is somebody gonna come across the corner, or I can hear something like behind me. Especially when you hear Mr. X's footsteps. Makes me wonder how Nemesis is gonna go when that game comes out. But the rap, even back in the PS1, you could hear the raptors, especially with their footsteps and their hisses. There was, even for the time it came out, the sound design in that, they give you some distance of where you could potentially hear them or where they are in the area you're at. Heck, when you even try to go through one of the rooms, there are some instances where the raptors are trying to knock down the door and they're shaking it. So there's also that intensity of trying to probably get out of the room, get into the next one, or just trying to find the item you're looking for before the raptor comes barging in. So, and that's another thing about the dinosaurs themselves I want to see updated. The raptors, they could possibly be the same. I mean, they were already fast enough and had a single-minded goal of hunting you down. And with the modernized controls, no longer tank controls, you could easily try to get around them. But they had so many ways of trying to take you down. Like they could leap on you, pin you to take a huge chunk out of you, and even use their tails to whip your weapons out of your hand. So there's also another layer of strategy when it comes to more three-dimensional movement and tank controls to try and figure out how to get rid of them. Especially with, again, the survival horror aspect, you have to figure out how to utilize the number of ammo you have. Your handgun can only get you so far. Heck, and even in some instances, like when you took down zombies in Resident Evil, even if you took them down, you didn't know if they were dead or not unless you saw like the pool of blood underneath them. Same thing with the raptors. They could just eventually get back up. And you had different types of ammo that can try and figure out how to get rid of them, either lethally or non-lethally, which is why you had tranquilizer darts. So you could say, okay, I'm going to shoot them, probably kill them here, and save up my tranquilizer darts for probably a bigger enemy, or I can have them sleep right now, and then I'll worry about it later. Because the thing is, the tranquilizer darts don't work forever, and eventually they'll reawaken in the same area, or they'll catch you off guard, and they'll hunt you down in an adjacent room that you just entered. So again, there's another layer of anxiety and strategy you had to think about. Which all tied into that mixing mechanic that he did. It's kind of like what Resident Evil 3 did with the ammo system, but the mixing system is more used for like your medical supplies and then again the tranquilizer darts. But that was another thing that gave you anxiety with the game itself back in the original. You didn't have a health bar or not even the indicator of like how much health you had. Your main character, Regina, was your health bar depending on how she limped, like you did in Resident Evil. That was all you needed. So there was another layer of tensity and fear of trying to keep her alive. And in some instances, like when you had the poison effect in Resident Evil, it'll drain your health. With Regina, you had a bleeding effect, which would slowly drain away your health. Don't know if it actually kills you if you leave untreated. I never figured that out when I played the game for so long. Heck, because I only know that there are instances you had to bandage up and that would stop the bleeding. But it also makes me feel like how her injuries would look in the game. Because these aren't like Resident Evil, oh, I'm going to eat an herb and I'll suddenly feel better. I wonder if the damage itself is going to resonate on her outfit. Because for the most part, Regina doesn't look that different throughout the entirety of that whole night. Her outfit doesn't get damaged and she doesn't look any worse for wear. So it makes me feel that maybe throughout the mission in the remake, her outfit gets damaged over time. Because there are some instances where she can't escape a dinosaur that's got on her grasps, which gets into those quick time events, which I'll get to. But it also makes me feel like what they did with the RE2 remake, with some enemies leaving their marks on your body even after you heal over time. And even like the bleeding effects, would that leave like a blood trail on the floor? And if that's so, it makes me feel like, oh shit, can the raptor actually smell my blood and then track me down that way? There's another idea of layering I want to see with that game, like utilizing of strategy and advanced AI the for the raptors. It's like, okay, I want to try and treat my bleeding, but I don't want to waste my resources. But if I don't, not only is it going to make my health dwindle, but a potential raptor is going to follow me. So it makes me feel like, how do I utilize my importance, my survival, or trying to take down an enemy, or make them, or try to lose them? Because the majority of, actually the entire game takes place at night, because you have sections where you go outside and in the facility. Because the second game goes mostly in the jungle setting, which I still have to yet to beat the full game. I've only played the first one, like, again, several times over. Now, the story and the characters itself are pretty much the same as I want to see in the remake. Not exactly the same, like more modernizing writing. Even the voice acting is okay, even for the PS1 standards. There are some over-the-top acting and some dull deliveries. But again, the most part, the story and the characters themselves are very serviceable, and they could just use a bit of an update. And when it comes to the story itself, you have those decision-making areas where the story branches off, kind of like they did with Resident Evil 3, but instead of only one QuickTime event where it decides how the ending goes, Dino Crisis has multiple endings. I believe 4, if I'm correct. 3 endings. There are 3 endings depending on the choices you make throughout the game. And there are branching areas where you have to make a decision either to go with one ally or the other, and that opens up certain areas throughout the game that you can enter early or later. Again, there's a whole other way of exploration. So, because for the first half you're up on the top side of the facility, but when you get to the second half, you're on the basement level of the facility. If I'm trying to think of one thing that, the QuickTime events. So yeah, Resident Evil 3 did have those QuickTime event changes, like they were QuickTime events that you could either decide to do something more passive or aggressively with your decisions on how to get away from a certain situation. With Dino Crisis, your QuickTime events, you just have to button mash to get away, like from a raptor that pins you down to a pterodactyl that carries you through the sky. It's more or less to escape further damage, but there are some instances where it could instantly kill you if you're not fast enough. Again, these are just button mashing ideas. I don't know if they ever do the remake, they'll keep that aspect. But again, it could be a very tense moment, but for me personally, the quick time events themselves were pretty archaic for the time. I mean, they were to catch you off guard. That was intense. For like the first time you came across a raptor with that quick time event, where it tries to pin you down and does damage to you, it is intense because it catches you off guard, and you're like, oh shit, I got button mash. I don't know if they'll keep that in, but I wouldn't be opposed to it. Alright, now what was I going to say? Oh yeah. The one thing I definitely want to change to be less frustrating or less cryptic would be the puzzles. The puzzles in this game can be they were hit and miss. Some were okay, but others were like, why did I have to go through all this? Because the one thing that really ticked me off for the longest time was the fingerprint puzzle. So throughout the game, you have this key card that you need to register to be used for you, but you need the appropriate fingerprint of a scientist there that has the appropriate access. The problem is there are several dead bodies throughout the facility that you could register the fingerprint with. The only way you can find the appropriate fingerprint data is looking through documents. Normally, documents, like when you come across these Capcom horror games with like Resident Evil, they're usually optional, so you would never think to look at some of these documents and then to think, oh, I gotta find this fingerprint. They don't even tell you which one of the bodies is the person you're looking for. Few times they have like a name tag that tells you who this person is, or they have a document right next to them that outright tells you who it is. But it's so cryptic that you have no idea how you can even figure this out without using a guide. And that's how I was eventually able to finish these games. I had to use a guide to even get past this puzzle. I swear, I spent like almost an hour doing that one specific puzzle, running around the facility trying to find this one scientist. And if that's not hectic enough, you have to do it twice. No, not twice, 3 times. Twice in the second half, because you have to get a higher level of access. And then in the final part of the game, like even for one ending, you need to get the main villain's fingerprints, which is, he's alive, so he's not dead. So how are you going to find it? You can only find it on a specific part of one area that has his fingerprint with a blood smear that you would think would just be part of the background decoration. That's even more cryptic. Even if they keep something like that, there's gotta be a way of making that less cryptic. Like, there's gotta be something that says, oh, I'll go over here and try to scan the fingerprint data. Because not only that, trying to figure out these cryptic ideas of solving this puzzle, you have to travel back and forth. The backtracking was another thing that has to be tries to the backtracking in this game was just awful, going back and forth, especially with all the raptors and these closed corridors. The closed corridors, I have to say right now, aren't that bad. I mean, they were good for the time. They still give you enough wiggle room to get past these raptors, but even then, there could have been something to reduce the backtracking in this game. The puzzles and the backtracking, I want them to change more than ever. Oh yeah, there was another thing that they did to try and help out the player were these fuse boxes that would give you ammo and health items. Because you can find these plugs scattered throughout the game. Again, you have to find them like in secluded areas. You would never think to pick them up. They don't even have like an icon to look on the floor that they were there. So maybe in the remake with the updated technology, they can give you like a small glimmer, like a small spark area. There's like an indication to tell you, ooh, there's a spark plug right here. Like when you have a flashlight, if they have like a flashlight like on their uniforms, like to get them through the dark areas, if you like shine it in a specific area, it will gleam and it'll tell you where to find it. Like, that's smart play right there and good use of the technology at the time. That could be something they do, because it's another way of utilizing your inventory and how to use it, because you can switch out the inventory, the items in your own inventory to the fuse box inventory. Because another thing that they did correctly in this game was a bunch of the key items that you would use were in a separate inventory box. Because in Resident Evil, there were some key items, sans documents, that you had to put into your own inventory, and that took up like a whole space. That was a good thing about the survival horror aspect, but that meant also sometimes backtracking back and forth to figure out, okay, do I use this item now, or do I have to come back later to grab it? That's the thing I liked about Dino Crisis. Many of the key items in the game are dictated to the key inventory slots, so you didn't have to go back and forth to try and switch out, okay, I have to use this now or I have to use this later, because there are no storage boxes other than those fuse boxes that are mostly for your item, that are mostly used for your health items and your combat items, like your ammo. So that's like the important stuff. That is perfect. And one last thing I want them to do is give us more variety of the dinosaurs. We got all the raptors and stuff, but we have learned much more about dinosaurs in the 20 years since the game came out. One of the dinosaurs in the second half was incorrectly thought of as a carnivore. It was a herbivore, funny enough. I mean, if you want to give these dinosaurs some more variety, give them also some feathers as well. I mean, they are supposed to be part bird. Or give us some different prehistoric animals. A large variety. You got so many dinosaurs to go with that it can give us a large variety. And even one dinosaur that just needs to be completely redesigned or just outright replaced. And the only boss we have in the game is the T Rex. I mean, there's gotta be more carnivores or large dinosaurs that can come in and just wreck your shit. Like, not enough to completely change how the game originally went, but just enough to give it a more variety. It's something I want to see, and I hope this remake is actually a thing. It's a remake I want to see from Capcom. I know people love Resident Evil, but Dino Crisis was the survival horror game that I grew up with, and it's the one that still terrifies me to some degree. And these are all the changes that I want them to do if a remake is ever announced. It might not be. It could just be the renewal of the IP. But I hope there will be a remake in the future. But anyway, guys, that's it for this video. If you liked it, please leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe for more videos. And if you like this video, please leave a comment in the comment section down below. So, if that said, this has been your Made East, and until next time, take care, everyone.